Hello to everyone, and today the intention is to explain actually the last part I was talking about concerning studying in Spanish, enterprise, self-control, achieve your goal, and get a good objective, so to speak. Now, that was the last thing I talked about in last class, right? So I'd like to say a couple of things in here. I showed you that picture in here. And maybe you remember that it's actually the brain that connects all the ideas in here, one from point A, point B, to point C, to point D. Actually, the brain, the one responsible for establishing the synapses and then getting to the major goal, so to speak, right up there. So that was the thing I said last time, right? I like to say something else in here. And all in English. Of course, all in English. Here, I like to show you my bibliography. It starts with this book in here that says something about the human brain and all the things that I have read about this issue and this topic. As you can see, I gather a couple of books. I like to show them, all of them to you. And here, in that part of my library here, I said and I mentioned this book, The Other Brain by Dr. Douglas Fields. And he says something interesting concerning the scientific and medical breakthrough that will heal our brains and revolutionize our health. Basically, he's the one with the glia theory. Very interesting one. I hope that you remember the glia issue, which is, in my concept, and really confirming what he says here in his book, the connection that is established between a neuron and another neuron, which is called a synapsis. In between are the glia, the ones responsible for this, let's say, synapses, so to speak. So this book in here, I like to show you. And I like to show you other book too. This book here about cracking creativity. I mean, there are many that I love, but that one is specifically because Mr. Michael McCullough says something about cracking creativity, and that is how I connected the idea. This book, Your Creativity and Your Imagination, like this guy said in the past, Albert Einstein, of course. And here, let me mention something, which is very important because I like to share with you exactly how I see education and the way we learn, the way I have learned, the way I have seen, the way I have discovered many of the issues and things, not only concerning languages, but also about any other issue, which is actually, like I mentioned before, the key aspect of perseverance. When you persevere, when you start with something, it might be very difficult at the beginning. And I remember that a couple of guys told me, listen, that issue about neurology is kind of difficult. It might be difficult, that is true. But I wouldn't say that it's something that is beyond this earth, so to speak, which is actually you can manage, you can write a couple of words, you can understand what is a neurotransmitter. And you know what motivated me most? I'd like to confess that to you. When I watched Dr. Joy Dispenza's video series in Gaia. And I'm not saying that because I make propaganda for him, but actually he deserves that too. But it's actually because he makes that look easy, approachable, something that you really interiorize and see from his perspective. Now, when you understand this, you can go back to the books and then say, listen, I like to research more. I like to investigate more. I like to check some more books about the issue and the topic and write it down. Basically, what I'm telling you is, no matter what is the topic or issue, maybe you require a little bit longer of time. But once you start writing down a couple of keywords and then understanding more and then, your personal research, you will see that actually your brain can do so much more. I mean, for me, neuroscience is kind of a passion. It's something that I love. It's something that where I say other people maybe in Silicon Valley, respectable, they are into technology and coding and programming and computers. Understandable. The Internet of Things and then artificial intelligence and fascinating topics too. But for me, the most fascinating, the quintessential topic or issue is the human brain. And that is how I said, well, if I have plenty of books about this topic and in internet so many more, why not telling people actually that your brain, I dare to say that, like my brain, has the capacity to understand anything. Which means when you start with something and then you say, listen, I like to, put all those bad experiences away. Get rid of them, really. as a warning how not to learn, especially when you didn't have somebody that guided you properly concerning the learning of languages or math or any other topic where you as a kid or as a teenager had an interest. Of course, there are many factors that, influence here, positively and negatively. You have to confess that. I have to confess that. It was not always my teacher's fault. It was also the lack of, I would say, lack of self-esteem that I had lack of guidance and many things. I mean, dysfunctionalities, I would say, are in anybody's home. I dare to say that. But what I like to say in here also, and sorry for the movement, but I like to say that is that when you start with something, when you really take a notebook, when you write it down, it's like Malala says, and I like to quote her here: one book, one notebook, one pen or one pencil is all what it takes for you to start with any learning project. Don't listen to any naysayers that actually discourage you from advancing more. What you do need is just your routine and perseverance. For me, those are the main issues in any victory. When you have the routine, you develop the discipline. Out of that discipline and the routine, your brain starts connecting ideas, creating the synapses, creating and associating data. And that is better for us to do so. And that is why exactly I tell every single person today in the planet, we have to empower our brain today, especially when we have all at hand, one click away. So if we use this, what's happening now, you see, difficult moments, strikes, very understandable, of course, very. And of course, I'm not going to judge because it's very obvious for you to see what is best for humankind, definitely. But one of the things what we have to keep in mind and also to consider is continue the evolution of our brain. Because for me, the main sin of human beings is usually ignorance, not knowing. Many things and factors, usually the worst mistakes in history, usually out of the fact that people didn't get committed, I would say that, with knowledge, with experience, with information, with evolution, all of them together. I won't say here critics or factors, this and that, because in history you would see plenty of things that actually were wrongly done by human beings. But the reality is that today, with the existing technology, we all have the capacity to start with something, to go there, to occupy our brains, and to say, listen, I like to see a specific project come true. What is the only secret? Remember, your perseverance, and after that perseverance, your discipline to establish your victory. Not easy, no, definitely not. You have to be patient. Most people, I have seen, let me give you an example in here. When you start, let's say, with YouTube video, I know it takes longer. It takes, and sorry, please, because I know I have to work in the editing issue. But it's also a question of patience, of investigating, of researching, of doing so much more, where people actually expect from one day to the other to have 1 million viewers. That doesn't happen like this. It's a question of working, of just discovering, of learning from others, learning from the best. There are plenty of wonderful tutorials that I have seen myself. And then I say, listen, work on it. It's a question of work. Like I said before, perseverance. Most people give up too soon when they are learning something. And here I am really urging you just to stick to it. Learn, continue, go on. Don't hesitate about asking people or just looking for better means and ways. Just to know that you do learn so much better when you persevere. Your brain does the rest for you. Your brain starts accumulating data. Your brain starts breaking those mental barriers. And then you will see how it goes. When you say, hey, listen, you change your attitude. Now you have a routine. Now you establish something. Now you continue. And one thing that is very quintessential in here, don't compare yourself to others. You don't know how others work. You don't know what is the kind of brain reception they have. What you do know is that with your brain it's possible. So you start going from point A to point B to point C, which is the notebook, pencil, remember Malala, your routine, and then go on. Work. Believe me, after 10 days, you will see a difference. Imagine the difference after 20 days, after 50 days, after 100 days, how much you advance in there. And then you will see, listen, you can only compare to yourself because the only one person that really has the capacity to assess you objectively is you in the learning process. So that is exactly what I wanted to tell you today. When you start the process of learning something, use all possible techniques. But above all of them is your perseverance, right? Remember your perseverance in here. And after having that perseverance, your discipline to continue. That is the hardest part for most people. Sometimes I have expectations, of course, but it's also important to see for me objectively, how much more can I do? How many more things can I incorporate in here in my learning process? Is it better for me to draw, like Betty Edwards in her book? Or maybe it's better for me when I listen to some podcasts? Or it's better when I watch other people doing that in some videos in YouTube? You see, or maybe asking the right people, the right person. That's important too. The right person, the right time, the right moment that is always encouraging you. Here, you need plenty of, I would say, good feedback. Zero toxicity, zero negativity, zero of the things that are not letting you move forward. That is exactly for me the secret in learning anything. There is no such a thing as a person that was born an expert, not in the knowledge I have. And believe me, I have been dealing with plenty of students, younger ages, middle age, older age, you name it. And it's always the same thing. They work a lot. It doesn't mean for you that you have to do the same because you are the only one that can assess, like I said before. But it's important that you recognize and say, listen, I like to advance in here. I like to see that I incorporate more things and be always objective assessing yourself. Listen to people that have constructive critics, not the naysayers. Like I said, toxicity, get rid of it. Toxic people, get rid of them. But always encourage yourself saying you are the most objective person to evaluate yourself. Don't be negative. Don't have the kind of attitude that is not helping you. Do the best thing for your own education now because it's possible now. Whatever any other bad teacher that you might have had in your life, erase that from your mind or just put that as a warning, how not to do things. But when you do know that you have all the things there at your disposal, create the successful routines. And that is how I like to show you what Mr. Richardson Jones said here in something wonderful. Let me show you here. That is precisely what it takes to be really successful. You see, the 8 traits successful people have in common. 8 to be great. Check it out. Passion. You really need to love that what you're doing. Discover that what you really love. And then go for it. Work. Have fun. Yes, it's much better if you have to work longer hours. It's better that you enjoy that. And then you say you focus, of course. Focus on that what you're doing. Here is very handy the book, Eckhart Tolle's book. If you don't know what book I'm talking about, let me show you right away quickly. This book here, look. The Power of Now. Great book. Focus on what you're doing now is the only thing that you have. And it's much easier to achieve your goal if you focus on the now. That is for me the best, let's say, reference to what is focus. And let's continue with the other traits. Push. Yes, keep pushing yourself, which means obligate yourself when necessary, of course, without disregarding your life and your other important issues and priorities. But when you have a project, just push, move on. And then you will have ideas, brainstorming, write them down, see what works best for you. Remember what I told you, there are many ways to learn in here. You see, think about that wonderful book that Mr. Howard Gardner wrote about the 9 intelligences. Sometimes we are a synergy of all of them. So work on your ideas, brainstorming and filter the best. And then see that you improve objectively. But based on what you do, don't compare yourself to others because it's kind of, I would say, delusional because you don't know how other people work, but you do know about yourself. So improve only referring to yourself. And then when you see that you serve a bigger purpose, yes, it's always good to connect other human beings and knowing that we are serving, that there is a certain reciprocity. You win, other people win too. That win-win thing issue, I believe in that. I confess that. I definitely believe in the win-win issue. So serving others is serving you too. And here persists. What I told you, perseverance is all what it takes. It's all what it takes for a brain, like it says in here, to succeed. Just like that. Please remember, that is the secret that I have seen in any kind of learning. Check it out. This human brain, or this human brain, or this human brain. I mean, your brain in general is the most fantastic machine at your service. Just have patience, perseverance, and discipline with it. And it will do anything for you, literally. Thank you for your attention. See you in the next video.